This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Ah, Smart Water, now in a sleek can.
This feels cool, literally.
Perfect for social gatherings and on the go.
Should I start wearing turtlenecks?
One sip at a time, friend. Smart Water cans, for those with a taste for taste. Get yours today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Sadie, and I'm joined by a birthday girl, aka my co-host Teagan. And I am so excited for today's episode because we're doing a bucket list for our 30s, but it just so happens to drop on Teagan's actual birthday. So the day this episode comes out is Tuesday, June 3rd. Teagan is entering her 30s, a whole new decade. And I'm just so excited that, we can do this episode today to celebrate. Happy birthday, Tag.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm very excited, but I also feel like it doesn't feel like it's happening.
Yeah.
Yet.
Doesn't feel different.
It's kind of hard to explain. Yeah. Or it's just like, I'm going to wake up the day after and be like, oh yeah, my birthday was yesterday. Be like, oh yeah, I'm 30.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a big deal, I guess.
Yeah.
Where it's been so built up that I feel like it should be a big deal, but it doesn't feel that way. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I feel a lot of people feel that way about birthdays in general, where it's it's literally just another day. And I'm maybe a year older, but I'm only really a day older than I was yesterday. It is very overhyped, but I don't know. I love birthdays. I always find it's a great time to reflect and to kind of plan for what you want your next year to look like. In the case for both Teagan and I turning 30 this year. I don't know. I feel like I'm super excited to turn 30 just to think about not only a new year, but a new decade. And I know that's maybe intimidating for some people, but it's very exciting for me. So yeah, we're definitely going to get into our bucket list for our 30s. But maybe before we get into that, we can do a connection card.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I thought, Tag, for your birthday, we can go to the closer category. We've been just in the close category. We're using the, what is this called? Get Closer connection card deck from Intelligent Change. So let's dial things up for the occasion. And interesting. I actually kind of love this question for today's episode. And it says, are you living the life of your dreams?
Ooh, that is a very good question. I feel like, here's my answer. In the day-to-day, it doesn't feel like it. But on reflecting and looking at the big picture, it's like, hell yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of like when my alarm goes off in the morning and I'm tired and groggy and oh, I have to go to the office. I'm like, this is not the life of my dreams. But then it's when I'm riding the bus home and I'm like, hell yeah, girl, you got the job that you literally wrote in your journal that you wanted without even knowing that this was a job, and you bought a house. And once we get into the bucket list, my bucket list isn't actually that long because a lot of the things I journaled about wanting to do in my 30s, I achieved within the past year. So it's yes, but it doesn't feel like it all the time. But I think that that's just why it's good to stop and reflect and be like, hello girl, wake up. Come on, So yeah, that's a really long way of saying yes, but everyone has shitty days. And when you're living in the stressful moment of, whatever's happening, it's easy to forget. But I think if 20-year-old me saw me or 15-year-old me saw me, they'd be like, that's cool. They'd probably think I was cool, which is the ultimate compliment.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I actually resonate with that answer a lot as well. And I think it's just like your life feels very mundane when you're just, like you said, getting up, going to the office or logging into the same job. Like, it doesn't really feel like anything crazy. And in a year, in a decade, like, our days are, we have more days like that than more days of accomplishing super huge goals and doing these, like, you know, once in a lifetime opportunities. So, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. I agree, though, where I feel like I frequently have moments of being like, oh my God, like, it's usually very cheesy. I'm downtown and like get a glimpse of the CN Tower and I'm like, oh my God, I did it. I moved to the city. I left my shitty small town and I built a life for myself. Like, I feel like I have a lot of those moments, but exactly what you said, like, I think my younger self would be so like pumped for her future self and like who I am now and like so proud and like it's definitely the life I wanted for myself. So I also think I'm living the life of my dreams. I get to travel, which was also really important for me. I feel like I'm a boss ass bitch at work. I live on my own. I live in the city. Like, yeah, I think in the big picture, I also am living the life of my dreams, even though I also have mundane days and bad days as well.
Yeah. For sure. I love you bringing up like being downtown because 2 weekends ago, I had a friend who was in town celebrating her 30th birthday and she doesn't live in the city. So this was like her big birthday outing. She like went to another country for one of her friends' birthdays. So she was like, I need to do something awesome for mine. And then it was just like another, I don't know, like reminder of like, oh yeah, my life's pretty cool that this person chose to spend their like big 30th birthday weekend in the city where I just live. Yeah. And we did stuff that I just like do
all the time
every weekend where it was like, took a Pilates class. Yeah. Other ship went to the well. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is just routine, but it is like very special. And so it's, you know, that reminder to be like grateful about the things you have. And yeah, I do also love being downtown and just being like, yeah, I'm a Toronto girly now. So look out.
Yeah. I love that. It is interesting because I feel like I've always dreamed. This is one thing that I have never accomplished and probably never will is like living somewhere different. Like you're talking about like going somewhere to celebrate a birthday. But I've always had a dream to like move to London, England. And then once my sister moved to Montreal, I'm like, maybe I should just move to Montreal. And I still think that probably at least once a week. But I don't think I could actually do it just because I'm like, but at the same time, that means I'd have to leave behind the life of my dreams that I'm currently living. You know what I mean? Like I've worked so hard to build this life that is the life of my dreams, to have to leave it and like build it completely all over again somewhere else. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to do that, but I feel that's maybe the only thing coming to mind where I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. I think it would have been super cool, would have like added to the plot, would have probably really added to like the character development of my life, but I never did that. And I really don't think at this point I ever will, but never say never, I guess.
Yeah, who knows? Like, I don't know. I could picture something where it's like, we need someone to like be on assignment 6 months in this like random ass place. Sadie, would you go? And then like, I could see something like that. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, maybe speaking of birthdays, Tag, tell us, do you have birthday plans to celebrate your 30th birthday?
Well, not really. I tend not to plan things on my actual birthday because I'm a big birthday like crier and not for any like actual reason. Like it's not I'm like crying because I'm older or I'm crying because I regret the things I didn't do. For some reason, it just makes me cry.
I get that.
And so, yeah, it's really weird. So I usually keep my actual birthday like pretty low key. This year, I'm actually traveling the next day for work. So it's going to be like extra low key. We're just doing dinner. I did have like a little backyard barbecue that I was just like calling my 30th birthday, but really we like just wanted to have a backyard barbecue. So that was really like the extent of it. This weekend, I am having like a little mom grandma date, which I'm really excited about. We're going to go see Pride and Prejudice because it's the 20th anniversary of the movie. My grandma is so excited. It's she listens to this podcast, so hi grandma if you're listening.
Hi, grandma.
But you like they're encouraging outfits. So she's like spent all this time getting her outfit together. My mom and I refuse to wear bonnets because our heads are so big, but maybe my grandma will wear like a Regency style bonnet. So I'm doing that. And then, yeah, just dinner with my husband at a bar I really have wanted to go to on my actual birthday. Then flying to New York the next day.
Nice. What bar is it? I'm curious.
Compton Ave. It's by the bar chef.
Yes,
guy.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It's one of the. It's the only one I haven't been to so far.
Nice.
So,
yay! That sounds so lovely, and I love how you have your family time, your husband time. You had your friend backyard celebrations. You're getting it all in, but I feel you don't need to do it on the exact day, especially if you know you're a birthday crier. That's fine.
I just want to be by myself. Yeah. Listen to like chill music and I don't know.
That's totally fine. Awesome. Well, shall we jump into our 30s bucket list?
Mm-hmm. I will say, Sadie, your list is like 3 times the size of mine. Okay. So sorry, everyone.
I can maybe kick us off and I can group mine together. Sure. And this is... So the background on why my list is so long is in January, I went through a fairly intensive like soul searching journey with my therapist. Mm-hmm. I can't even exactly remember what spurred it on other than it's a new year. I was really feeling like a lot better after a few years of feeling very lost. And I was also kind of in the mindset of I'm turning 30 this year. Like I'm closing a chapter, if you will. And I was like, I'm not sad to be turning 30 or I'm not sad to be leaving behind my 20s, but I really don't want it to be like a closing of a chapter. Like I really want it to be taking everything I've learned and done and achieved in my 20s and like building off of it. So anyways, I went through like me and my therapist had probably like 4 sessions going through like every phase of my life from like my childhood to high school to college to post-grad. And then we kind of got into, okay, all of that being said, like what do I kind of envision for this next chapter of my life that isn't like I'm not necessarily abandoning who I am, considering, like I was saying, I really feel like I'm the person I've always wanted to be, living the life of my dreams, blah, 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 blah. So all this being said, this is where my list kind of stems from in terms of like, yes, it's aligned to my 30s, but it's just kind of like, what does that next like level of my life look like? And there's a few different parts to it. I think I'll start maybe just with like home and family. So number one thing that came to my mind is that my next goal is to live in a townhouse in the city. And I don't need to own the townhouse. I can just rent it. That is fine. I do not have a goal to own property in the city ever. Being realistic with my dreams here. But in any case, I just want to live in a townhouse. I would love to continue to have 2 to 3 bedrooms, which is what I have now, so that I can host people for like the weekend or always have space to take in friends and family if they need it. Also have a home office, but also I just want more space. And I want a yard so that eventually I can adopt a dog. So I feel I have a cat, so people just assume I'm a cat person, but I can't wait to be like a little bit older, a little bit more settled down to adopt a dog. So that's kind of like first thing that came to mind. I keep saying my next apartment, once I leave this place, which I've been in for like going on 10 years, is to a townhouse. So manifesting that for my 30s. And within this townhouse, / maybe before, I also have the dream of owning an espresso machine. And you're going to hear me talk about how I've always wanted to learn about coffee in a little bit. But I feel like this is just part of that. So those are 2, maybe kind of like, well, 1 more serious where I want to live. 1 kind of silly, smaller thing. But I feel like that was it kind of on the home side. And then in terms of like family relationships, I just have that I want to find my person. I want to be in like a loving, supportive, genuine relationship. I wrote with a beautiful man because that's kind of what I've been waiting for this whole decade of my 20s. So I feel like now that I am more settled in my career and just more settled in my life, I know who I am. I'm just wanting to find my person who can kind of match that energy. And then in terms of friends and family, I'm like, you know, when you're like in your mid 20s and everybody starts getting married, I feel like now in my late 20s, going into my 30s, like seeing my friends who are in their 30s, it just shifts to like, okay, now everyone's married. Now everyone's buying their house. Now everyone's having kids. So for me, I don't know if I necessarily want kids. We got to find that beautiful man first and like see what our relationship looks and feels like. But for me, like I really want to be like an amazing auntie if my sisters decide to have kids, if my friends have kids. And I also had like kind of the dream of being a maid of honor when I was in my 20s, and then ended up happening I was a maid of honor at 3 different weddings, which was absolutely amazing. But I'm like, okay, been there, done that. Now I would love to be a godparent. I know that's maybe not something everybody does anymore, and I'm not religious at all. So it would just literally be like, since I don't want my own kids necessarily, if something were to happen, I'd love to take in someone else's kids. I think I'd be a kick-ass mom, but I don't know if I want to commit to having my own children. So yeah, that was kind of it on the home family front.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like winding your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox disinfecting all-purpose cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
I love that. I love a townhouse.
Right?
I could definitely see that. And I feel like it's still very like aligned to your lifestyle while literally just being like the next level up.
Exactly.
Because it's like on paper, it's the same as an apartment. It's just like vertical space, which I'm a big fan of. I love that vertical separation.
Totally.
But
and I'm also not really homeowner material. Like I'm someone, something goes wrong, I call my dad immediately and I'm like, Dad, help. Like, you know, where I'm like, I like renting where I don't have like the responsibility, but I can still make it my own. I have my own space and so on. So yeah,
for sure. And I also find that townhouses feel very New York to me. Like when we were buying, we saw so many towns and some of them had like little rooftop terraces with like the little water towers and stuff. And I was like, yep, New York. Yeah. I love it. I mean, some of mine on my list sounds so silly.
No,
but
that's
whatever.
fine.
So actually, I kind of went on a soul searching journey as well, which inspired a lot of the things on the list. But it was actually that I was doing the intelligent change, like guided journal called The Life Designer, which I feel like maybe I should get this for your birthday or something, because I also feel like you would be like, hell yeah. But it's just all about like designing your dream life. And it's like quite an intensive workbook. It was like 200 pages or something. And so a lot of my goals, I did it in October, so I was still 29. And some of the goals that I had written in it, I have already achieved. And so it tells you, like, what do you want to achieve in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And so some of the 2 years ones are already off the list, which is very exciting. But so kind of a similar thing is I want to do the artist's way. And this I see like all over TikTok. I bought the book. I bought the fancy like matching journal, and the whole idea is that it's this book that you follow along with, and it makes you like the best artistic version of yourself. And this is something that's just like really important to me as a part of my soul search journey thing. I had to come up with like what my own personal values were. And one of them for me was like creativity. And I find that when you're working a 9 to 5, it can be difficult to keep that at the forefront. Because if you're doing the same thing every day, you're often like, well, I'll just do like the laziest thing, even if it's not creative. where that's just not aligned to my values at all. And this was also a part of why I wanted to find a new job, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I really want to do the artist way. I was right at the beginning of this year when I was doing my job hunt. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to find a new job. I should just do the artist way. And I was still doing all these interviews, and I read the first chapter that's like every chapter is a week you're supposed to do. And I was like, yeah, I cannot commit to doing this right now. And so I want to wait until like I'm a little more settled in my job or whatever happens. I also feel like this would be like something really good if like you just lost your job. Like I know Doechii did it, and she did it when she was fired from the recording studio she worked at. And then it like basically kickstarted her career, all this stuff. So it's something I want to do in my 30s, but I definitely like, I don't want to commit to saying this is a goal for the next year. Yeah. But the next decade seems reasonable. I have all the materials, so we'll see.
Yeah. So it's like a workbook, like
yes.
Okay.
It's a book. Okay. But then you are basically journaling. Okay. One of the big parts is that you have to write in your journal every single morning. Okay. So if you hear people who, especially creatives, are like, every morning I write my morning pages, that's to do with the artist way. But it's very intense. Like she's like in the opening of the book, which I guess it's good that she's very open. But she's like, if you do not have a couple hours a week to dedicate to this, don't bother. Wow. That's why I was like, okay, I got you. And I know like you are supposed to do like an artistic date with yourself once a week. There's 1 week where you can't read, watch anything, use your phone. Like it's all just different ways to sort of connect with yourself. And then she says this is the way to like make yourself way more creative, and then doing the morning pages gets it flowing, blah blah blah. So it's supposed to be like for musicians and writers and things, but I just think that everyone's creative, and so probably everyone could find value in doing it, but it does seem quite intensive, and I'm like, I don't want to start it and then give up after like a week and a half because I'm too busy. Right. But
and how long's the whole like
the story
process?
I think it's like 8 weeks maybe.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I need to double check. But yeah, it's like every chapter is a different thing. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I heard about it on TikTok, and then I've been looking it up, and it's like all these famous people have done it. And Doechii actually, she did like a YouTube vlog series when she was doing it. So you can so like cool. Go and find that. It's really interesting. Yeah. And I see so many girls now on TikTok who are like, they post their daily video, or they post a video a week of what they were doing. And
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard of that before. I have heard of morning pages, but I thought just somebody made that up because that's such a like cute little phrase for my morning journaling, you know, but I didn't know it was from that. So
yeah, it's her.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like, that would be good to like kickstart kind of your creativity, since that's so key to what you do for a living, Tag, and like your career, but also just like a really good like little life reset, and also like connecting with yourself, regardless if it's to spark your creativity at work or like outside of work. I think that would be so cool. I will group together quite a few for my next one. And I'll just go into like, I don't know, we'll call this category hobbies, I guess. So first, which is not really hobby, but like whatever, is continuing to find and refine my personal style. I feel like that's something I say every year in my yearly goals, but I feel like starting a new decade where you're like, okay, I'm a little bit older, like how do I want to present myself in this like next chapter or like next era of my life? Like that's when you start to think about these things. So that's been kind of top of mind for me. And part of that is that I want to buy my first designer handbag. I have like Kate Spade, I have Coach, but I'm like, no, I need like fashion house designer handbag. I'll probably buy it from like a secondhand store where it won't be, you know, top line right from the store kind of thing, but I do want to own a designer handbag and find and refine my personal style. So that's kind of the next category. Maybe I'll actually pause there. I was going to go into the hobbies, but I can probably do hobbies.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
Do you have like a bag picked out or not yet?
Not really. No. I have like a few, but I'm like, I don't actually know what I want. It will definitely be like a classic black or brown bag that I can wear every single day.
For sure.
I'm very much like a crossbody bag person, but I feel like a lot of designer bags are like shoulder bags. So I'm like, I need to, or if they're crossbody, it's more like small, tiny, kind of you can dress up as an evening kind of bag.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I need to do more research. I just know, since I'm somebody who like really values like beauty and like expensive shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just know I want a designer bag. What it is, I don't know yet, but yeah.
I love that. You should do research into like other countries too, because one of my friends, she bought her first designer bag, I think when she was in Italy, because she was like, there I could get it for probably not like Kate Spade prices, but more in that realm. But you're obviously like paying to go to Italy or whatever, but something to think about. Yeah, the next one for me, and this is probably the bucket list item that I've told the most amount of people about, is that I want to apply to be on Survivor.
Oh yeah.
I tell people this, I probably bring this up like 25 times a week. And reactions range from people thinking I'm joking or people being like, yeah, you should definitely do that. So we'll see. I don't know. The hardest part is that that you have to film yourself. And then I'm like, I just know myself that I'm going to take it too far and be like scripting it and going crazy and then doing all that work and just like literally never hearing back. But I just need to get over that and apply because I want to play Survivor so bad.
Yeah. Honestly, and I also like how it's like, again, realistic, where you're like, the bucket list here is to apply, not necessarily be on Survivor.
Yeah, no.
Just to apply and see where it goes, because like at that point you're not counting yourself out. You know what I mean? You just are applying. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's something on my list. We'll see.
Is it the Survivor watchers who are like, hell yeah, you should do it?
Yes. Yeah. Because they know it's like regular. Everyone's just like a regular person. It's the people who don't watch Survivor who are like, oh my God, wouldn't that be so hard? I'm like, well, yeah, but I also want to get Jungle Hot, which is what people are called at the end of Survivor. So that would be so good. Although I don't think I would make it to the end. Someone was asking about it last weekend, and I said that if I was on an okay tribe, I could make it to like the second or third boot, which would be good because being first would be embarrassing. But second, you're only like camping for like 3 days. And then if you're pre-merge, the person I was with was like, you don't want to make the jury? I was like, no, because if you go before the jury, you just get sent on a cruise in Fiji. So I was like,
you've really thought this
great.
out.
I get to be on Survivor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think about this, like I said, 25 times a week. The entire time I'm watching Survivor, I'm like, that could be me.
I love that.
Hanging out with Jeff Probst. So,
okay, we're manifesting this for you for your 30s.
Yeah.
Doing the artist way and going on Survivor.
Yep.
Love it. Okay, now I'll get into my hobbies. Last one wasn't hobbies. This one is. So some of these things I'm already doing, again, since I kind of went through this in January and then a few like weeks ago started having like a meltdown, being like, oh my God, I don't have a social life. I don't have any goals right now. So then I just picked a few of these things off to start. And that is training for a 10K. So I have on my bucket list to run a 10K, running one, I think, in a week and a half from when this episode drops.
Woohoo.
And I hope to run multiple 5 and 10Ks throughout my 30s. I will never be a half marathon runner. I will definitely never be a marathon runner, but I will run a 10K. So that's number one. Next 2 things on the list are to learn about coffee, going back to the espresso machine. I've always wanted to learn about coffee, and to learn about wine. So learning about wine is the other thing that I've started now. I actually signed up for like a 6-week wine for beginners course because I've been saying I want to learn about coffee and wine probably since my early 20s. They're just things that I know people are like super snobby about. And I'm like, I want to, again, being that person who like values the beauty and the expensive shit. I'm like, I want to be one of those people. So anyways, I've been really enjoying my wine course so far. It's like, it's probably not actually putting me in snobby territory, but it's just giving me enough information to like know how to tell if it's a good wine and like how to taste wines and what to taste for. And to learn about coffee, I don't really have a game plan for this, but it's next on the list after wine. And then the last thing I'm going to mention in this whole hobbies category is that I also really want to learn to snowboard. And this is something I completely forgot I like had dreams of as a kid. But I remember vividly, I was obsessed with Avril Lavigne when I was a kid because I was a little Canadian girl from a small town. Everybody was obsessed with Avril Lavigne and she snowboarded. And I remember at the time that I was obsessed with Avril Lavigne. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then my backyard neighbor, who's like best friends with my sisters, she snowboarded. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's just like Avril Lavigne. Anyways, I completely forgot about this. And then about 2 years ago, I want to say, my sister who lives in Montreal, her and her boyfriend went to Mount Tremblant for a weekend. And she was like, I was telling Mike how you wanted to learn to snowboard as a kid. And I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that. So I've re-added it back to my kind of bucket list. And you'll kind of hear how it ties into one of like my travel bucket list items once we get back to me. But Tag, I'll throw it back to you before we get there.
I love it. I kind of had something similar, which is not similar to snowboarding, but similar that it was a hobby, which is that I wanted to take a pottery course. And this is only like a brand new thing that has popped in my brain, but it's because like ceramics and pottery in home stuff are so hip right now. And so I keep like searching for it. Obviously, like buying it can be quite expensive because it's like handmade. And then I was just like, I should just take a pottery course. So that's definitely a goal. Like, I feel like it would be so good over the winter, like very cozy activity. And I know there are some in Toronto that are like 6 weeks. So it's like you make 6 different pieces of art that you bring home. So yeah, it's on my bucket list.
Yeah. I feel like I know a lot of people who are doing ceramic classes. So if you need to know where to go, hip. I'm sure I can ask around. But yeah, I feel like that's good. And it's just nice. Like, this is the other, sorry, I'm going on so many like little rants in between the bucket list items, but this is the other thing I'm loving about turning 30 is I saw this thing maybe on Instagram. I don't know where it was, but it was like turning 30 is just reconnecting with who you were before your 20s kind of turned everything upside down. Like, it's like connecting who you were as a kid kind of thing without caring what other people think, you know, where I think that was really your 20s as you're doing all these new experiences, trying to like meet all these new people, and then you're trying to fit in with all these new people. But then at the end of your 20s, you're just like, now I know who I am, what I like, but it's pretty much what I started with, you know? Like, I've always wanted to learn to snowboard. I've always wanted to learn about coffee and wine. Now it's my 30s, just time to do it. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's nice about like any course is like just reconnecting with those extracurriculars you had as a kid. But now you just have more time, hopefully, in your 30s to do it. And you care less and enjoy it.
Exactly. And you have the money to pay for the courses.
Yeah, that's a big one as well. Okay, so I guess kind of traveling. Okay, I'll get into travel. I was going to do this like separate, but just going off the whole snowboarding thing. So the past few years, I've recently gotten the dream to go on a New Year's trip that's like a ski snowboard trip somewhere in Europe, preferably like Switzerland or something. Like, I'm like, let's just shoot right for the stars. So is that going to be snowboarder beginner friendly? Probably not. However, I'm hoping this beautiful man that I enter a relationship with is like a pro ski snowboarder and he's on board with this idea. So yeah, that's something I would love to do. I feel like just kind of leaning into like the beauty of like winter and like embracing it. I don't know. I just feel like that'd be very magical. And I like kick-ass way to bring in the new year. I also have the dream to go on a yoga retreat. I feel like I've been saying that for years and years as well, but I really want to do that in my 30s. And I want it to be somewhere like in Asia or in South America, TBD where, but I want it to be like very retreat vibes, I guess is the best way to say it.
Right. Yeah. Have you read the book Eat, Pray, Love?
Haven't read the book. I watched the movie, of course.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because she doesn't go to a yoga retreat, but she goes to like a religious retreat in India. But there's definitely some yoga involved. That is like, if you want to travel, the book to read for
totally.
sure.
I watched that movie like 3 times before I went to Bali, and I was just like, hell yeah. Like, so good.
Yeah.
And it's just so inspirational.
I was all into the Italy part. I was like, the eat.
Yeah.
Then once we got to the pray, I was like, But yeah, so good. I think another one for me that's also sort of travel is I really want to visit Scotland. And I've already visited Scotland multiple times, but I want to go back as an adult because Tyrell has never been. And my sister-in-law was just there, and I was just like, damn, this is such a vibe. And my grandma goes every year. I'm talking about my grandma so much, but she goes every year because she's from there. And she's now getting to the point where she's like, I don't like to do the flight by myself, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, we should just make it that one of the years when she's going,
you guys go.
We're
Yeah.
going with her. Yeah. And my cousin lives there. She works in a pub in Edinburgh. So I'm like, that would just be so fun to get to hang there and see the sights.
Yeah. I love that. Maybe I'll stick with the travel theme here. And I have like my next 5 big trips planned out. Probably just like one a year. So this will take me into like my mid-30s, I guess. But one of like the more local trips, I guess, I want to do is to go to Vancouver. I've also been saying this for years and years. I had a trip planned like 2020. And of course, we know what happened with that. But that's probably like number 1 on my list to travel to within Canada and like within North America in general. In South America, really want to go to Costa Rica. That's also like my next international trip, if you will, next big trip. So that's top of the list. But then for Europe, number 1 spot is the Netherlands. And it's funny you're saying you want to go back to Scotland because you have like so much like family heritage and like, you know, like kind of roots there kind of thing. The Netherlands is that for me. I have only been to Amsterdam and I was only there for like a 13-hour layover on my way to Bali, but I absolutely loved it and I just felt so connected being there. I was completely on my own. It was a Monday, it was rainy, everything was closed. Like in retrospect, like it wasn't a super special trip, but it just felt so special internally. So I want to go back. I want to go with my sisters if they it's always so hard to like coordinate schedules and whatever, especially for like big trips. But in any case, I would love to do like a family trip and just kind of like, yeah, kind of connect with my roots there. And then my other 2 big trips, I want to travel to Singapore and I want to go to Morocco. So that's kind of my travel bucket list, if you will. And all of it's going to happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Morocco is also on my list, but I don't know that in my 30s it's going to happen. But my cousins were just there and it looked so nice. And they took like all these cooking classes and stuff. So they learned how to make all this like Moroccan food and like it's just so beautiful. The hotels are so beautiful. So
yeah,
that would be so good.
Low-key terrified. So this is so silly, but this is just how my brain works. I'm terrified of snakes. And I know like in Morocco, they have like their street markets, but like snake charmers are like their...
Yeah, they saw one.
Like that's their like entertainment or whatever that word is that I'm looking for, like street entertainment. And I'm like, I would absolutely be terrified. And just knowing that there's snakes around, no thank you. But I'm like, and also of course, like I'm a feminist. I don't think feminists really thrive in Morocco. Like, you know what I mean? Like it would just be very different. But I think that's why I want to do it. I've just identified it as like, this is a trip I would do with a group because why I want to go is for the food, like you're saying. The architecture is like my favorite type of architecture. I think it would be beautiful. And I think it would be really great to have that like kind of culture shock and like be a little bit scared and outside my comfort zone. But definitely something I'll do with a group, not on my own.
Right. And I bet, I don't know, I feel like it's the kind of thing where like the first couple of days you'd be like, whoa, this is so different. And then by the end you'd just be like, yeah, whatever, you know?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have a really hard time overlooking how people treat women.
Yeah.
That's a big cultural...
Unfortunately, a lot of the world.
That's a big cultural thing that I'm like, literally, I'm like shaking with rage just observing. So, yeah. But I have to go. I have to experience it.
Yeah.
And then...
That's... Yeah. I see that. One of the things on my list is to go to Egypt, specifically to do like a luxury Nile cruise. I have like a couple boats picked out, I'm very specific about the kind of boat I want to be on. And similarly, I don't think that this would be a solo trip for me. I think that this is something I'd be doing with my husband just because, again, Egypt is like quite close to Morocco-ish. and kind of similar vibe. So I was supposed to go to Egypt when I was in high school, and then they had some political stuff going down and the Canadian government wouldn't let us go, so the trip got canceled. So it's been on my list since then. My great uncle went. He carved his name in the Sphinx. So I just think that that would be very cool. I do have so many people tell me it's not what you expect. You know, you can see McDonald's from the pyramids. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And that's, again, it's like sort of why I want to go too, where I don't know. I have, I think, realistic expectations of what it is. And I've been to, I don't know, countries where things aren't so great. Like I've been to Cuba and I was like, this is great. Where people on the trip are like, this is terrible. Right. So I think that I've got my expectations in like the proper place. And I've already started like researching the boats and things. And again, looking at the reviews, half of them are like, this was amazing. And the other half were like, the shore was so dirty and, you know, things like that. So that's definitely something on my bucket list. And I feel like a cruise, I've never ever done a cruise. I don't think I'm a cruise person because I get really seasick. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not my vibe. But I do think, I hear like you don't get seasick on these big boats. And I think the Nile's pretty chill. And I think this would be the perfect mix of me getting to see this place I've always wanted to see while still being able to like relax and have my own space and all of that good stuff. And you are just like dropped off at the locations and they pick you up and it's all good. So I really, really want to go. Maybe my next big trip. It's just quite pricey because I'm very particular about the boats.
Well, and you have right to be. If you know you get seasick and that's a big trip, it's a far way, you might as well. And you've been talking about this for as long as I've known you, I feel. Maybe not in like kindergarten. You weren't probably talking about going to Egypt. But for
probably didn't know where that was.
Time you've been talking about this. So it's like, you definitely want to make sure you're, living out that dream. I love that.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I think I'll wrap my list up with just some work-related things, of course. So I feel like I'm wanting to like take my foot off the gas a little bit at work. Like I'm very content with where I'm at right now with my title, but I do feel like my 30s is a whole 10 years ahead of me. So within those next 10 years, I do see myself continuing to climb like the corporate ladder, working my way up to like a VP of marketing type title. I still see myself working for a retail brand, preferably a brand that I love, like my dream. Probably not quite like a Sephora, not like an international brand I love, but something like an Indigo here in Canada, a Reitmans. You guys know I love my Reitmans. Like, you know, kind of keeping it like possible, but having kind of that VP of marketing title I think would be cool. And then also having my own business. This is something that I've unpacked with my therapist so many times because I'm like, I've tried freelancing, I didn't like it. And then because of that, I very much like wrote off having my own business where I was like, maybe I've had this dream forever, but then I did my first kick at the can and I didn't like it. So I guess that's not a dream anymore, where I feel like just it's still in the back of my mind where I would love to have my own business. But now I just picture it like before I used to picture it as like by the time I'm 25, I'm completely self-employed and living this like globetrotter life of being a digital nomad and having my own business. Where now I really see myself like working my way up in the corporate world and then like midlife kind of leaving corporate Canada and starting my own business. If that's like some sort of consulting, if that's like, it could literally be anything. I've even like talked to one of my best friends about like, we would love to open a restaurant. We would love to start our own like wine company, you know, like invest in a vineyard. Like obviously all of that takes money. And I'm like, it's more realistic to do that midlife than in my 20s. So just because it didn't happen then doesn't mean it never will, I guess is the moral here. So having my own business is the last thing on my bucket list.
I love that. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I just had two more things on my bucket list. One is I want to take a luxury sleeper train somewhere. You can see I'm like obsessed with the like old school luxury travel, but it's for some reason I just love it. It was the same with like the hotel in Hawaii. I just want to pretend that I'm like a rich lady in the 20s. So I've never taken a sleeper train. I have taken like long train rides, like 5-hour train rides and stuff. That's not the vibe. I want to be like in a fancy, like little sleeper cabin. And so again, this is very expensive. There are very particular trains I'm interested in. There is one in Scotland, so maybe we can check off 2, but we'll see. It depends on when that Scotland trip happens. But there's also, like, if I'm sticking with the Agatha Christie, there's, you know, a bunch of trains that are more aligned with some of her books and things like that. So we'll see. It's just something that's really interesting to me. And I don't think it's the kind of travel that I would do like over and over and over again, but it's the kind of thing I want to do once.
Yeah, makes sense.
So there's that. And then the last thing is we want to like expand our family, but we don't really know in what way yet. So I don't know if this means that we're getting a dog or if we want to have kids. We don't know, but it's definitely something we want to do. Like, it's just the 2 of us and our 2 cats, and that's great. But Tyrell really wants a dog. I grew up with dogs. I was very anti-cat until I got my cat. So that's something. Maybe having kids, who knows? So obviously the 30s is the time to do that. The 40s is too late. So we'll see. Expanding our family in some way. I just don't know what way yet.
Yeah. I love that. I feel we've ticked all the boxes. Talked home, family, talked relationships, work, travel, literally everything.
Yeah. That's none of mine were work.
Oh yeah,
just
sure.
like,
well, your artist way,
pay to go on travel.
like your artist way, maybe your creativity.
True.
You know?
Yeah. One major thing that was on my bucket list when I did my soul searching was to get a new job within the next 2 years.
Here you are.
So I did just do that.
Yeah. I love that.
So maybe if you ask me like next year, I'll have more job things. But yeah, there you have it. Those are all of our bucket list items for our 30s. I do feel like some of these could apply to like the 20s as well, depending on where you are in your life and how much you have your shit together. I feel like some people do, some people don't in their 20s, but that's everything for this week. We put out a new episode every other Tuesday, so make sure you're following and subscribe to us so you see when those new episodes drop. And you can also follow us on social media. We are at Our Golden 20s on all the platforms, so make sure you find us there as well. We also have a Patreon page, which is the best way to show your support for the podcast for as little as $2 a month. And that's everything. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye.